How businesses make money. How businesses make money. Starting with number one, LTP has to be greater than CAC. Duh. But let's get into it. Oh, look, I did write this. Duh. So you've got to make more money over the lifespan of the customer than it costs you to get them. Obviously, because otherwise you're spending money to get people who give you less money than it costs you to get them, which is not a good recipe for making money. So cool. Thing number one, I'm glad we covered that. Number two, let me give you a real example to make this real for you. So this is a real thing for me. So I had a meals company for a year or two, and foreshadowing, things went wrong. So we had $100 CAC, which means it cost me $100 to get a customer, and we had $500 of lifetime revenue. I'm highlighting this, lifetime revenue. And I was like, and so my team comes to me and says, hey, we're going to be rich. Every $100 we put in, we get $500 back. Let's spend more money. And I was like, hold on one second. And so, not so fast. I was like, okay, well, what are our gross margins on these meals? And so the gross margins were 20%. So, and our lifetime revenue was 165 times 3, meaning people would pay for $165 a week for the meals and they would pay for 3 weeks. Okay. So the 30-day gross profit was this is per month, excuse me. So 165 times 20% is $33. So now my lifetime gross profit was 500 times 20% was $100. So wait a second. So you're saying I'm spending 100, making $33 back in the first month, and spending 100 and making $100 back lifetime. But then we have like all these humans that we have to do all this other stuff with as well. Well, that's not going to work very well. And so it didn't. And so I told them to not do that. It's also why I'm not in the meals business anymore. Now, if you're like, hey, why didn't you work to figure it out? It was the fourth business I started while I was still CEO. And Layla and I had one of these conversations. She was like, pick. It's like, legit. And so I ended up shutting that down because I had a co-packer. So it wasn't like I had a huge amount of staff or something that I had to lay off or anything like that. I was repurposing my supplement company staff to deal with all the meal stuff. Here's a fun fact for you. 80% of our customer complaints came from meals, 20% from supplements, and 95% of my profits came from supplements, and 5% came from meals. And I was like, I think if I were giving me advice, I would advise me to stop doing this. And so I did. So let me give you some benchmarks though, so you have an idea, because you're like, okay, got it. So let's just say GP, not PG. So it's not a PG-13 movie. Lifetime gross profit to CAC ratio should be over 3-to-1, which means you should be able to make more than 3 times what it cost you to get a customer in gross profit, not revenue, gross profit back to you as a business owner. All right, at minimum, in order to have a profitable business. At minimum, this is not like that's the goal. This is by all means, if you're below this, you're absolutely screwed. At 3, you're still not like in a great position. Ideally, it's much higher. Okay, here's the example gone better. So in order for this CAC to work for this business, I would have to make $1,500, not $500 in lifetime gross profit in order for this to make sense. So I had to be way higher in order for this to work, and it wasn't. Okay? So that's just to give you an idea of what kind of adjustments that I would have to make in order to make that business work, which I was like, I don't know if I can conceivably do that, which ultimately led to me deciding not to. Which then leads us to the only 3 numbers that matters. And this is what you need to write down. This is what you need to think with. All right. Now, this is not in the book. And you're like, wait a second, how are you not talking about this in the book? It's because no one can do math. So you're here and you can do math. So if you're looking closely, you may notice that there's 3 numbers that make the biggest difference here. All right. So number 1 is CAC, which is the cost to our customer. The second is the fact that I talked about this 30-day thing. Like, why am I talking about 30 days? And the third is gross profit, which those 3 metrics triangulate acquisition, meaning getting new customers. CAC is how much it costs. GP is to make a profit. And short PPD means payback period, how long it takes you to make that money back, how long it takes you to make your cost back. So ideally, you have low CAC, which means you have cheap customers. You have high GP who pay you lots of money, and then short payback period, which means really fast. Outcome is more money faster. All right, and that's pretty much the training in this book. Like that's what this is all about. So that's what we accomplished. The rest of this is all about how. Okay, so boom, those are the 3 numbers that matter. And let's get into the first one a little bit more detail, because some of you guys are like, CAC sounds like something my cat threw up. Understood. That's the next one.